All right, gang, we are going to do this toy train assembly today. So here we go. We've done this already, but I'm going to go ahead and walk you through it one more time. So first thing we're going to do is open our assembly. So you should be in an assembly that looks like this, and we are going to start inserting parts. All right, so obviously part number one, going to be your train body. So drop that in, and then I'm going to start bringing in my other parts. So my smokestack, I'm going to need a wheel on this side. I'm going to need another wheel on this side. I'm going to need my cow catcher in the front. I'm going to need an axle peg on this side, another axle peg on this side. Going to need a linkage arm over here. And I'm going to need two linkage pin pegs over here. So there's one and there's two. I'm going to need a hitch pin in the back, and I'm also going to need a hitch magnet in the back. Now that'll get me enough for now until we get around to the other side. So I'm going to get all that drug in, and I'm going to click my checkbox. All right, so got them kind of spread out. I'm going to work on one side of my train, and then I'll show you how to do a few things on the other side as well, but I'm not going to do everything on the other side. So the very first thing I'm going to do is my smokestack, and the reason is because it is the most straightforward. All right, so I'm going to grab my mate tool by clicking the M button, and I'm looking for a fastened mate. So once I've got that, I'm going to flip underneath my smokestack. I'm going to zoom in, make sure that I have the bottom of my smokestack selected. Joint origin right there in the middle, flip around so that I can see the top of my train. Zoom in here, make sure that I'm directly inside. That bottom ring is selected, joint origins in the center. Click it, and boom, it's in there. Now the great thing is I can click this green checkbox right here, and I remain inside my mate's tool, which is good because that's what we're going to be using the entire time here. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is my cow catcher. So I'm going to zoom around or flip it around so I can see that. I need another fastened mate. So what I'm doing is I'm going to this top peg right here, and you can see I've got three options. I want to get to the very back. I'm going to zoom in, and I want to grab this corner right here. My joint origin is right in the center, but I want to make sure I'm getting the very back of that peg. I'm going to click it. I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to spin around so I can see the front of my train, and I'm going to zoom in, and this is the one that I'm looking for, and I want the front of that hole. All right, so I want the outside circle selected. That joint origin should be hovering right there in the front. I'm going to click it, and when I do, my cow catcher is going to zoom in, and it's going to stick there, and that's what I want. So now I'm going to green check right there, and my cow catcher and my smokestack are installed. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hitch magnet and my hitch pin together. So I'm going to zoom over here so that I can see them, and I'm going to flip up. I want to be looking at the bottom. So I'm going to zoom in. Again, this is a fastened mate right here, fastened. And I'm going to grab right here this corner, and my joint origin is going to be in the center. I'm going to click that, zoom out, spin around, and I'm going to zoom in on my magnet, and I want to grab this cylinder right here and make sure that my joint origin is on the edge. I'm going to click it, and boom, it did that perfectly. That's exactly what I wanted it to do. All right. If for some reason yours goes in and it looks like this, all right, anytime you end up with like a peppermint patty type looking or a peppermint candy type looking part, this little arrow right here is your friend. Flip primary axis. You flip that, it's going to spin it around. That's what we want. So I'm going to click the green check box. Now it's time to put that in the back of our train. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to spin. Sorry, my spinner is a little touchy today, so I'm going to get that where I want it. I'm going to zoom in. Still in a fastened mate. That's what I want. and I'm going to get this corner right here where the yellow meets the orange. All right, I'm going to click that, zoom out, and I'm going to spin around so I can see the back of my train. And I'm going to zoom in here, and that's what I want right there. I want that edge of that circle. My joint origin is in the center. I'm going to click it, and if you notice, okay, so I got the peppermint patty or the peppermint candy. So I'm going to click my flip primary axis button, and it's going to bring it out. And if you notice, it did not bring my pin, but that's okay, because as soon as I hit this green checkbox, that pin is going to come screaming in, and boom, there it is. All right, at which point now I can go back to my isometric view, and I can see that I have my cow catcher, my smokestack, and my hitch pin. It is time to start working on the wheels. All right, so I'm going to spin around, and so that I can see the back of my wheels, and we're going to switch the type of mate that we're using. All right, we're going to switch from a fastened mate to a revolute mate. Revolute does exactly what the name implies that it's going to do. It's going to allow something to revolve. So I'm going to slide in here, and I want you to pay attention. See all those dots that are surrounding all my parts? That's what you want that to look like. But as you can see, my joint origin is moving around right now. And whenever I click this, wherever my joint origin is located, that is then going to become the center of my part. Okay, so I want to make sure that I have that center in the middle of my axle. So once it's there, I'm going to click and slide my mouse off, and it's going to turn yellow, at which point I'm going to spin around, and now I'm going to zoom in on my train. Okay, and when I do, I want to get this edge right here. I'm looking for this edge, nothing else. I don't want that yellow box. I don't want the inside. I don't want both of them. I want this circle right here with my joint origin in the center, and I'm going to click. And I'm going to back up a little bit. All right, just to double check that it is working correctly, I'm going to click the play button over here, and it's going to show me that my wheel is rotating. That's what I want. So I'm going to click the green check box. Oh, but I forgot to do something. Okay, we'll come back to that. All right, we're in Revolute 2, and I'm going to spin around, and we're going to do this wheel next. All right, so I want to make sure my joint origin's in the center, and everything is selected. Once it is, I'm going to click. I'm going to zoom out, spin around, and I'm going to zoom in on this right here, and click. And just to make sure that it's working, I'm going to click play. My back wheel spins. It's in the same orientation as my front wheel. That's exactly what I want. And what I didn't do on the last one, I'm going to do here. I'm going to click this little edit button, and I'm going to call this wheel 2. Okay. Now I'm going to click that green checkbox, and I'm going to right click on Revolute 1 and rename it, and I'm going to call it wheel 1. All right, so we've got wheel 1, wheel 2. Now let's put some axle pegs in there. All right, so I'm going to grab my mate tool again. It automatically goes to fastened, which is what I want. I'm going to flip underneath so I can see the bottom of my peg, and I'm going to zoom in. Okay, I'm going to zoom in, and I'm looking for that joint right there, which is the same joint that we used on our hitch pin. So I'm going to grab that, zoom out, and I'm going to spin around, and I'm going to my wheel. Now we're using a fastened mate and not a revolute mate, because we don't need our hitch or our axle pin. We don't need our axle peg to spin. We just need it to attach to our wheel. It's going to spin with the wheel. Okay, so mine went in backwards, not a big deal. Click that primary axis button, and it fixes itself. I'm going to zoom back out, click this green check. It automatically goes to my next fastened mate. So now I'm able to spin around, grab the bottom of this one, just like I did the last one. See, my joint origin is in the middle. I'm going to click, zoom out, bring that up, zoom in on my wheel, make sure I'm just getting the outside of that rim right there. Joint origin is in the middle. Again, click, Oh, got my peppermint candy, so I'm going to flip it around, and that looks like what I want, so I'm going to green check it. I'm going to go into isometric, admire my handiwork, and I'm happy. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to add this over onto our part. I'm going to move these closer because it's going to make them easier to find in just a minute. So I'm just going to kind of drag these over here, click and drag. All right, now I can zoom in a little. All right, so our next one is going to be a revolute mate because we want our linkage arm to be able to rotate with our wheels. Okay, so I'm going to spin around to the back here and zoom in, and I'm going to grab this outside cylinder right here. Joint origin is in the middle, and I'm going to click. All right. Now this next part, you have to be really careful on your wheel. Okay. If you notice, there are a number of places that we can click and attach this thing. Okay. Now, I don't want it to go back here. I don't want it to go out here. I want it to go right here at this edge, because what I want is I want that little gray peg to go through the hole. I'm not trying to get this in the hole. I'm trying to get this little gray peg right here in the hole. So I'm going to grab the back edge right here, and my joint origin is in the middle. I can see that full circle. I'm going to click, and that's what we're looking for. Okay, we're looking to see that our gray is flush with our with the edge of our part. Now, don't worry about if yours doesn't have this little gap like mine does. The reason mine has that gap is when I was 3D printing, I realized that everything wasn't going together completely, because if the peg is the same dimension as the hole, it won't go through the hole. It's too big. So I had to redimension mine so that it would print. All right, so now I'm going to grab my linkage arm, and I'm gonna, you know what I forgot to do? Forgot to set my body and fix it. So over here, train body 1, I want you to right click and click fix. Now our train body will not move around, which is what I want. Now I can grab that linkage arm and spin it down. Okay, grab your mate tool, do another revolute mate. I'm going to spin this around, zoom in right here, same part of the linkage arm that we did last time. So I'm going to click that, zoom out, spin around, zoom in, look at our wheel, grab the back of that peg right there, and click. When I do, it's going to bring that linkage arm in, and we are in good shape. So now I want to switch and go to, actually I want to green check that, and then I'm going to grab my mate tool again and go to fastened, and we're going to fasten these linkage pegs. So we're going to zoom in on this linkage peg. I'm going to grab that joint right there, zoom out, zoom in on the front of our linkage arm, and I want to go right to the inside of that cylinder, and I want the joint origin in the middle, and I get the peppermint candy, so I'm going to flip it and click the green check box. And when I do, it goes to my second mate. So I'm going to zoom in up here, grab that corner, zoom back out, slide down, and remember, wherever your mouse is, that's where it's going to zoom. Okay, so I'm going to set it right there, zoom in, make sure that I get where I want, peppermint candy, flip it, hit my green check box, and bam, we've got that done. Now, one of the things that's going to happen here is, I'm going to close this out. We should have 12 mates at this point. All right, you should have a number of fastens, a couple of wheels, number of fastens, a couple of revolutes, and then a couple of fastens. Okay, now if I come over here and I right click on wheel number 1 and I tell it to animate, I like to tell it to loop, and I want it to go forward. Okay, now watch what happens. If I press play, it's going to start spinning, and as you notice, my wheels are spinning in the opposite direction. All right, that's not what we want, obviously. Okay, so I'm going to just single click on wheel number 2. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click play. Now it looks like they're going in the same direction. Oh, but now they're out of kilter. And then same direction. All right, so here's what we need to do. We need to tell this linkage arm to stay parallel to the bottom of our part. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my mate tool and I'm going to choose parallel. It's all the way at the bottom. And now I'm going to flip over to the bottom of my train. All right, I'm going to click in the center of the bottom of my train. And then I'm going to zoom in on my linkage arm. Okay, and what I'm looking for is I'm looking for that joint origin to be right in the center of the bottom of my linkage arm. And I'm going to left click once. When I do, my linkage arm is going to jump to the center of my train. Don't freak out. That's okay. Click the green checkbox and it will go right back to where it's supposed to be, at which point now we can close that. And now we should be able to come back over to wheel number 1, right click, choose animate, and tell it we want it to go forward and we want it to loop. And when we hit the play button, both wheels should go forward together and that linkage arm should stay straight the entire time because it is running parallel to the bottom of the train. All right, so that is half of your train completed. Okay, so I'm going to close that and now I'm going to spin my train around and it is time to work on the other side. All right, I'm going to zoom out, slide this over here a little bit, and we're going to repeat the process. Insert, and I'm going to grab 2 wheels. And if you notice, they're coming in backwards, but that's okay. I'm going to show you how to fix that in just a second. All right, 2 wheels. We're going to need 2 axle pegs. So throw that over here. Throw that over here. We're going to need a linkage arm. And we're going to need 2 linkage pegs. And I'm just going to throw those up a little closer because I'm going to need them up there anyways. All right, so we got 2 wheels, 2 axle pegs, linkage arm, linkage peg. That's what we need. I'm going to green check it, and we are ready to get started. All right, so we are going to take this and we're going to try something. Last time I had us spin this. This time we're not going to spin it. We're just going to go straight to our mate tool, and I'm going to choose Revolute. Okay, so I'm going to choose my Revolute mate, and I'm going to work on this wheel right here because I like to work in the same order that I worked on the other side. That way it doesn't get confusing. So I'm going to zoom in here, make sure that my joint origin is in the center. I'm going to click. The back of my wheel is going to turn yellow, and then I'm going to zoom in on the front of my train like I did last time. Make sure that I've only got that selected, and when I do, I'm going to click. Got that peppermint candy rolling. That's okay. Bam. That's what we want. So I'm going to click OK. All right. Now we're on Revolute number 4, or Revolute again, and we're going to change the names in just a second. So don't forget that. So we're going to choose that wheel just like we did the other one. I'm going to zoom in right here, and I'm going to make sure that I'm just selecting that. We're getting the peppermint candy. So I'm going to flip the axis, and I'm going to click the green check box. Now I'm going to close this menu, and I want to double check something. So last time when I did this, these pegs, we had to reorient them. And so I'm going to check and see. Right now, they oriented the same way that they did on the other side, which is exactly what I wanted them to do. All right, that's going to make our job a whole lot easier. Now I'm going to move this closer to my train so that I can see what I'm doing. But before I go any further, I'm going to name my wheels. So Revolute 3 here, I'm going to right click and rename it. It's going to become Wheel 3. And Revolute 4 right here, I'm going to rename it, and it's going to become Wheel 4. All right, we're going to use that a little later when we set some gears. Okay, now it's time. I'm going to slide these up because I want to get things in frame just a little bit better, make it a little bit easier. All right, so now we need to add our axle peg. So we're going to choose our mate tool. We're using fastened, and we're going to spin up, zoom in, grab that joint right there, zoom out, and we're going to work with this front wheel. Make sure you're grabbing the edge of that circle, hit it, peppermint candy, flip it, and green check. Same thing, flip up, zoom in. We're still in our fastened mate. This one will be fastened number 10. Click that, zoom out, come over here, zoom in on this wheel. Make sure you're getting the edge of that wheel. Click it, peppermint candy, flip it around, green check. All right, so I'm going to go to isometric. Very good. All right, now we need to switch from a fastened to a revolute. So we're going to go revolute, and we're going to insert our linkage arm. So I'm going to spin this around, zoom in, and make sure that I'm getting the edge of that circle like I want. Joint origin is in the center. I'm going to click it, spin around so I can see my wheel, and I'm going to zoom in on my wheel. And when I do, get the back of that peg, and that's what I want. I'm going to green check it. Then I'm going to slide out. I'm going to grab the back of that linkage arm, drag it straight down so I can see the back of it. And now I'm going to rearrange it so I can get to the back. Zoom in, make sure that I'm in a revolute mate. And I'm going to grab the edge of that circle. That's what I want right there. I'm going to zoom out, spin around so I can see my wheel. Zoom in, make sure I'm grabbing the back of that cylinder. Click it, and that's exactly what I want. All right, now we need to switch from a revolute to a fastened mate. So I'm going to grab this and choose fastened. And I'm going to look at the bottom of my linkage peg. Grab that joint there. Slide in. Grab that joint there. Peppermint candy. Flip it around. Green check it. Zoom it out. Flip it. Zoom in on that linkage peg. Adjust it if you need to. Get on that corner and zoom out. Zoom in. Grab the outside of that cylinder and bam, peppermint candy. Flip that primary axis. Green check. Zoom out. Close that. And all right, isometric. All right, so just like on the other side, if I right click on wheel 3 and choose animate, I should be able to tell it to loop. I want it to go forward. If I hit play, it's going great. Oh wow, this one did it without any hiccups. That's really nice. But we're still going to have to tell it to go parallel. Let's check wheel number 4. What happens if we animate wheel number 4? Okay, there you go. And this is why we have to tell it that we want it to be parallel, because otherwise, depending on which one is driving, it's going to mess up that linkage arm. And your train's not going to go straight if your wheels are going in 2 different directions. So I'm going to choose my mate tool, and I'm going to choose parallel all the way at the bottom. Whoops. Then I'm going to look at the bottom of my train. I'm going to zoom in, click the bottom of my train. Then I'm going to come over to my linkage arm and zoom in, make sure that I get in the center of my linkage arm. When I click, it's going to jump to the center of my train, which is fine. Click that green checkbox. It's going to go back to normal. And now I can click this, click to isometric, and I have a finished train. All right, so we're going to animate it. So I'm going to go to wheel 1, right click, choose animate, tell it I want to loop, going forward. and I'm going to click play, and I can see that the right-hand side or left-hand side, depending on how you're looking at it, is working. The problem is the other side is not going with it. All right, so we're going to animate the other side. I'm going to left click on wheel 3, and I'm going to flip that direction, hit play. All right, so every now and then it will do this, and when it does, you can try changing the direction, see if that makes a difference. All right, if it doesn't want to work, then come back, click on a different one, and now that one doesn't want to work. All right, don't worry about it though. All right, so sometimes it will do that, and then the next time it might play. This time it looks like it's going to freeze on us. Okay, don't know why, and it does this sometimes. All right, but we can fix it. All right, so the last step is we want both sides to work together. And so how do we do that? We're going to choose this gear relation tool, and we need to choose two mates. So I'm going to choose wheel number 1, and I'm going to choose wheel number 3, my front 2 tires, front 2 wheels, and I'm going to click the checkbox. Now, when I click on wheel number 1 and right click and choose animate, and I tell it that I want it to go forward and I want it to, I want it to loop. When I hit play, they are going to, what in the world is going on? Try this again. Wheel number 1, animate. There we go. All right, so we can spin it around. We can see it's going together. Everything is working right. Everything is in sync, and all is right in the world. All right, so once you're here, you are done with your toy train. Congratulations. We will work on getting this thing on a track and getting it moving forward and backwards on a track in another video. So hope this helped, and look forward to seeing what you have created in class.